13 lectures on the Apocalypse, the seals continued. The Lamb, having taken the scroll in his hand, breaks one of the seals. John is summoned by a loud voice to come and see. This is worth a moment's consideration. It was one of the 4 beasts that said, "Come and see." Now, in view of the fact that the 4 beasts represent the commonwealth of Israel, we here have the community of the faithful exhibited as having an interest in the signs of the times. They invite John to look at the events unfold themselves. The suggestion contained in this incident is that the servants of God are always interested in the signs of the times and watch public events from a divine point of view. They have always been of this watching class because they have both understanding and a strong desire for the accomplishment of the purpose of God in the earth. John responds to the invitation to come and see. He looks and sees something occur at which we shall presently look, but there is a peculiarity to be considered before going on. When a seal was broken, a parchment would be unloosed from its place. This is what would literally happen in what John saw. But what connection could there be between this act and the occurrence of a scene which John could witness? The movement of figures, the occurrence of incidents, the sounding of voices, etc. We would readily understand how the unloosing of a seal would put the Lamb in a position to know what was written in that part of the scroll unloosed. But how could it set events in motion that John could witness? This question we have already partly considered. There is evidently a missing link between the 2 things. We conjecturally supply that link if we suppose the scenes to be caused by Jesus as a result of the knowledge and power acquired by the opening of the seals. Jesus, so to speak, reads in the open scroll and knows what to do or cause to be done in consequence, like the conductor of a drama who requires the MS before he can put a piece on the stage. We disrelish the comparison exceedingly, but perhaps it illustrates what is involved in the opening of the seals better than anything else. The opening of the seals is, of course, a pure enigma. Literally, it means the communication by the Father to Jesus of knowledge which enables him to reveal events as destined to run in the channel of the Father's purpose. And not only so, but to conduct those events to their predestined issue. The first seal being opened, John, responding to the summons, "Come and see," beholds a white horse with a stiff-armed rider holding a bow, going forth on a conquering mission. Remembering that it was declared that the time was at hand for the beginning of the future things shown to John, what event or phase of things is there in the time immediately after the communication of the Apocalypse to answer to this symbol? We will best obtain an answer by asking what we are to understand by the horse. It is common to employ animals to represent political powers, for example, the British lion. What power represented itself by the horse? Strictly speaking, there was but one state in the days of John, and that was the Roman state, leaving the barbarous parts of the earth out of the account. If the horse is a symbol of the Roman state, we ought to have no difficulty in discovering in the Roman state in the days of John a condition of things answering to the arrowless and victorious bowman astride the white horse. As a matter of fact, the horse was one of the symbols of the Roman power. This is conclusively shown by Mr. Eliot, who cites extant coins and other evidences to show the use of the horse as a symbol of Roman power. The horse being white would indicate a work of righteousness and peace, to which the body politic of Rome was being subjected by the party represented by the rider with the Stephan, having a bow but no arrow. What party could this be? The apostolic enterprise at once suggests the answer. This enterprise was a conquering enterprise of a certain sort, having the Roman Empire as the arena of its operation. It was an enterprise achieved without blood, so far as the aggressions of the apostolic party were concerned. As Paul said, "The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds." The 2nd of Corinthians, verse 10. Again he said, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and powers," that is, the ruling authorities. See Titus 3, verse 1. "Against spiritual wickedness in high places." Ephesians 6, verse 12. The bow is a symbol of speech. The victory was to be won by the use of the tongue, but without arrows as weapons of offence. This was the nature of the war carried on by the Spirit of God through the body of Christ in the days of John. It was a war of ideas, of truth against error, of righteousness against wickedness. Therefore fitly represented by an archer without arrows, and an archer wearing the Stephan, the token of victory. For the apostolic testimony did in the end vanquish paganism in the Roman state. True it is that the faith was soon corrupted and overborne. Still, a great change was accomplished in the Roman Empire by the apostolic enterprise. Paganism was driven from the throne, and the world was brought into a nominal subjection to Christ and the apostles, which was a great gain, and a preparation for the more effective form of their work, which is yet to come. If it be asked why the work of the apostles should appear to be restricted in the symbol to Rome, the answer is found in the fact that their mission was essentially a mission to the Roman habitable, which comprised the entire civilized world at that time. The Roman Empire, as shown in the map, supplies the geography of their work. Their sound went out into all the earth, and their words unto the end of the world. Romans 10, verse 18. It was proclaimed to every creature under heaven, in the apostolic sense of the words. Colossians 1, verse 6 and verse 23. The apostolic work continued after the death of the apostles by means of the ecclesias founded by them, conducted as they were by spiritually endowed leaders. While it was in the progress throughout the world, peace and liberty prevailed to a great extent during the first seal period, about 80 years, represented by the reigns of Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, and of the Antonines, called the family of the Antonines, in the same way as we talk of the family of the Georges. Historians speak of this as the happiest period in the history of mankind, on account of the absence of war and the prevalence of general prosperity, a period fitly represented by the white horse ridden by the predestined victor of the arrowless bow. When the Antonines ceased to reign, a great change came over the Roman world, as indicated in the symbolism of the second seal. Here the horse is red, signifying bloodshed, and the rider is not an arrowless bowman, but a man with a machaira in his hand. This ought to be translated a dagger, the implement most commonly used in assassination, and most appropriate to represent a time when assassination became the order of the day. Marcus Aurelius, the second of the Antonines, was succeeded by his son Commodus, a mere youth who differed from his predecessors in being a dissolute tyrant, who shamed public decency, and who squandered the resources of the state in debauchery and profligacy. The Senate grew secretly impatient of his ways, but dared not for a time show their feelings. At length one of its members waylaid Commodus in a passage as he was leaving the theatre, and presenting him threateningly with a machaira, the great sword or dagger of the second seal, said, "The Senate sends you this," and attempted to kill him. The attempt failed, and the emperor escaped. Direful consequences followed. Fired with feelings of revenge against the Senate, whose hostility he had suspected, he attempted to effect their destruction by a wholesale assassination. Terror reigned for a time, and the best blood of Rome flowed in torrents. At length Commodus himself fell a victim to the flood of violence he had let loose. Then there was more red horse work. Commodus, falling before the assassin's stroke, left no successor. The Senate appointed one in the person of Pertinax, who after 2 months' endeavour to reign wisely, was assassinated by the discontented soldiery, whose allowance he had abridged. The imperial purple, after being sold to the highest bidder by the soldiery, then became a bone of contention between the 3 leading generals of the army. A time of intestine war and confusion ensued, and paved the way for the experiences of the 3rd seal. In this the horse was black, and its rider a man holding a pair of balances. When bread is eaten by weight, it is a sign of scarcity and famine. The blackness of the horse shows distress, and the words addressed to the balance holder indicate its source. John heard a voice proclaiming, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." These are high prices for wheat and barley, when worked out according to modern standards and point of scarcity. But how came the high prices and the scarcity? Not from bad harvests, but from heavy taxation on the part of the government, the official balance holder of the Roman horse. This heavy taxation was the result of the reckless extravagance of the reigns of Caracalla and Elagabalus, dissolute monsters, who for 10 years, first one and then the other, lavished away the treasures of the people and exhausted the resources of the empire in their prodigal favours to the army among whom they lived and on whose support they depended. Taxation was brought to such a pitch that vast tracts of country went out of cultivation, the tiller of the soil feeling no encouragement to raise crops, merely to hand over to the revenue officers. The result of this was public distress on a large scale. It became common for parents to expose their children to destruction rather than burden themselves with the impossible task of providing for them. An extent of the taxation which crushed alike every part of the empire may be gathered from the fact that when a change in the government was brought about by the exasperated people, taxes were instantly reduced to 1/30th part of what they were during the reigns of Caracalla and Elagabalus. Alexander Severus came to the throne after the assassination of Elagabalus, and his reign illustrated the admonition of the voice that John heard. "See thou hurt not, or act not unjustly by, the oil and the wine." As much as to say that, although wheat should be at famine prices owing to the fiscal extortions of the first part of the seal, there would be an amelioration of the burden towards the second part. This is what happened. Severus practised rigid economy in every branch of the administration. He relieved the provinces from the oppressive taxes invented in the former reigns, and reduced the price of provisions and the interest on money. He sought to promote learning and the love of justice, in contrast to the profligacy of his predecessors, and acted on the conviction that the best way to secure the love and loyalty of his subjects was to promote their well-being. All his efforts, however, to change the colour of the horse were finally unavailing. The evils resulting from the previous reigns were too deeply planted to be removed in a short time. And though for a few years there was considerable relief, the army, becoming discontented with the economy of Severus, proved a final obstacle to his reforms, and by their hostility paved the way for the dreadful experiences of the fourth seal, which we must defer till the next lecture.